The last scout weapon that we're going to be covering is the plasma carbine, or the DRG 25. That's what we call it, the plasma carbine or the plasma rifle. Or the laser gun. Laser gun! Gun go pew pew! This is the last weapon that is currently unlocked for the scout. It is the weapon assignment for it is unlocked when you get your scout up to level 20. This is designed to be similar to the minigun for the scout. It is a battery-based weapon. It has a battery capacity of 800. This means there's no reload. It has an overheat meter. If the gun fully overheats, it has a duration of 2.5 seconds, and it takes 0.3 seconds for the gun to cool down. It deals 9 damage on a direct hit, and a rate of fire of 13 shots per second. This gun is really good for dumping ammo very quickly into something's face at close to medium range to kill it. Do note, though, that the projectiles do have a travel time on it, so it's important to understand that. The overclocks for this gun are going to be changed. I have impact deflection, which I really like, and I'm throwing this out there now. I really like impact deflection as a clean overclock where your projectiles bounce up to 2 times when they hit armor and surfaces. This is really good in my opinion. There's no drawback. It fits in any build. They're going to turn that into a balanced overclock. I don't know the exact details on it, and I'm really not looking forward to that. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. Please don't do that, guys. For modifiers, everything here is pretty unique, and this gun is actually really special. This gun does feature a lot of build diversity depending on what you run, so in my opinion, it is a pretty good thing. I think I might actually want to change my build. I have the Waster one, but I'm not really a fan of that right now. I don't think that gun looks that good. I might try it with that. Give it a nice cleaner Halo-looking Halo gun look on it. So for tier 1, we have a rate of fire change, we have a heat change, or we have a velocity change. So the velocity change makes it so that your projectiles travel faster and hit their target. This is the one that I highly recommend if you're not using overheat builds. The rate of fire one, in my opinion, is terrible. The rate of fire on this gun is pretty good. I don't think that you need to increase the rate of fire by 3. I do not recommend that at all. If you're making a heat build, I would recommend the less heat generated per shot. So this makes it so that you can fire an extra shot or 2 before your gun overheats, essentially. It reduces your heat per shot, so you build heat slower, you can keep firing the gun longer, and this in the long run increases your DPS more than your actual rate of fire increase. However, I primarily like to use this as a mid to long range option because it does have a longer effective range than the Zukovs and the shotgun do. So I primarily run the projectile velocity. The DRG special of having to choose between ammo or damage, which in this case is going to be ammo. The gun doesn't have a magazine. The gun has 800 flat ammo. You run out of ammo, the gun is useless entirely. So I run this. I give you 250 ammo, which is an increase of at 25% or more. It's a little more than that, but I'm just going to be lazy and round it to 25%. Or you could increase your damage. Now this is 2 extra damage per shot, but I don't really care about that. You can get extra damage other ways, and that ammo is essential to me. So both of these modifiers are essential. This one right here if you're running a heat build. At tier 3, we have a few options. So you have a reduced shot spread. This gives you an insane amount of damage increasing at long range. However, I actually don't run this. The main reason is because of the fact that the projectiles do have a travel time, and even with projectile velocity, you still have to lead your shot a little bit. I personally don't run this. This is really good if you want to hold down the trigger at close range, but I'm not a big fan of that. The other modifier here that I don't like is hot feet. This gives you a faster movement speed while your weapon is overheated, which it is actually a significant weapon movement speed bonus. It's 33% bonus movement speed while your gun is overheating, which is 2.5 seconds. If you are a run-and-gun type player who wants to hold down the button as quickly as possible, unload, and then run and get out, this is actually really good for those movement speed type builds. I actually prefer this weapon over the Deep Core and the M1000 in terms of movement speed build. I don't play like that though, so I run the Gen 2 cooling system. What this does is it increases your cooling rate and it shortens the cooldown delay. This means that you only have to wait 0.1 second, or 0.2 seconds, I should say, for the gun to begin cooling down. So you could actually cool your gun down really quickly. And also, you can cool it a lot faster. So I use this because it's good for keeping the gun, for having a steady trigger finger. It makes this gun have a slightly shorter time to overheat than the minigun does. If you're used to playing with the minigun, this build will make it relatively close to the minigun without cold as the grave. The special category that you have to choose from is actually, in my opinion, in Tier 4 as opposed to Tier 5. In Tier 4, we have a few options. The armor break. The way this works is it increases your armor break capacity to 300%. Here's the thing. I don't know if the gun is glitched or not. I'm still trying to figure it out. This gun deals, like, no damage to armor whatsoever. I straight up... Anytime I see a Praetorian and I'm running this gun, I will switch guns to my secondary. Even if it's something like the Zhukovs, which don't have armor break in them, I'll switch to the Zhukovs instead. This gun feels like it has no armor break to me, in my opinion. So either this modifier needs a massive jump to 500% armor break instead of 300%, or this modifier is just terrible. The gun might be bugged. I don't run this one. I normally run most of the armor break modifiers. So you have two choices here, which can depend on your build. So the overcharge, PCF, or the plasma splash. Plasma splash makes it so that the direct damage of the gun is then transferred to area damage. 5 damage is taken away from your direct contact and gives it a small area of effect. It's about a half a meter to a meter, somewhere in that range, where it will hit and deal 5 damage in that small area. And it does apply shit like armor break, the base 100% armor break. While this can be nice, and it especially does work well with the bouncing projectiles, I'm not a particularly big fan of this. I mostly run the overcharged PCH. What this does is it has a 20% chance per bullet to have a small electrocution chance. This means if you run the Zhukovs with it, you can actually switch between these two weapons pretty quickly. Electrocute a target, switch to the Zhukovs, get the bonus damage from the electric field. This also helps for people who, for example, if you run the cryo grenade, like I do, instead of the stasis grenade, this does give you the ability to have electrical field targets for your engineer to play around with for their modifiers, as opposed to just having to run the stasis grenade. And that 20% electrocution on hit also gives damage over time effect as well. So this is actually a more reliable, in my opinion, damage increase. The last change that you have is pretty simple. Both of these are pretty terrible, to be honest. You have the thermal feedback loop. The way this works is that the rate of fire of the gun increases when the weapon passes 50% of its heat meter. This does mean that the gun will overheat faster. If you want to run an overheat build, this is the modifier you're going to take. Again, I don't like overheat builds. I don't like my gun overheating on me and having to switch. I personally run the manual heat up. What this does is it means that when you reload the gun, which you normally wouldn't do, normally when you reload the gun, it forces the weapon inspect animation where you start playing with your weapon. Pressing the reload button with this will force the gun into overheat mode as long as it has some form of an overheat, and force it into the overheat duration to immediately cool the weapon down. Now, this, in my opinion, I run this for the sheer fact that I just like pressing square out of habit. I'm a Call of Duty type player. I mean, I grew up playing Call of Duty, therefore I press square after like every kill out of habit. So I want the ability to press square on a gun. Why can't I press square on a gun? Also, I don't like that, because I don't want to increase my rate of fire. I'm going to put my overclock back on. The plasma carbine is a pretty solid option. It's kind of interesting because it doesn't really have a role outside of, in my opinion, the bonus electrocution chance. That's primarily why I would run this gun. While you can pair it with the boomstick, if you pair it with the boomstick, you're going to have relatively low ammo, and you're going to be relatively close to medium range. If you pair it with the Zhukovs, you're going to have a relatively high ammo and be relatively medium to long range, but you're also a high rate of fire guy. In my opinion, the Scout does have very specialized weapons. They have very specialized grenades, and I think because they have such specialized weapons and grenades, they kind of complement each other quite well. So that's the plasma carbine.